Hey everybody. Happy Sunday. Hi Goksta. Hi Sposisiwe. Mighty hi. Hi Likano. How are you guys doing today? Amorena Tabs, hello. Welcome. Good. I am doing good. I'm doing very good, thank you. I'm not getting used to how quickly the weekends fly past. Like it's already Sunday. I'm not ready for Monday, if we're being honest. But other than that, I am all good. Hi guys. Welcome. So yesterday, it was quite a shock for so many of us to wake up to the news of Chadwick passing away. It was quite a shock to the system. Thanks, Lekano. It's quite a shock to the system, I must say. Still processing. Death is such a weird thing. Trying to get your head around that. It's definitely not something I think I could ever get used to. But yeah, 2020 has been a hell of a year. A hell of a year. Wow. Goksta, his passing was such a trigger, right? It was. It really was. I have a friend who lost her battle with cancer 2 years ago, and I was saying to my mom that, you know, when she passed away, it was, I couldn't process it, so I kind of just, you know, kind of threw it in the back there somewhere, and I was just like, I just don't have the capacity to deal with this, and I haven't processed it since then. Yeah, you know, I know she's gone, and you know, I know that, you know, I won't speak to her again, but it's kind of just like a concept still in my mind. And waking up yesterday to the news about Chadwick forced everything to kind of come to the forefront, and it was really tough because I was thinking about how dealing with fighting stage 4 cancer and still having to show up, having to, you know, do all of these things. It's crazy to me because I've seen firsthand, you know, witnessing my friend, her battle with cancer. It's an incredibly painful disease to have to go through, to have to, you know, deal with, and the symptoms, the treatments, the medications, and just, you know, the effect that it has on you know, your body. It's insane, you know, and the fear of, will I survive it, was a very big thing, because that was one of the things that, a memory that was triggered for me was, you know, my friend having moments where she would just cry and say that she's so scared because she doesn't want to die. And you know, it's a very difficult thing, because what do you even say, you know? But yeah. Hey Namzi, you just started the book a week ago. Yay! I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you're enjoying it. We are in the middle of chapter 6 right now. We're going to be finishing off chapter 6 today. So that there might be a bit of a spoiler for you. But if you have your book with you, you can read along with me. I will tell you what page I'm going to be starting from. So, Cookster, your sister lost her battle 3 weeks ago. Oh no, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Sending you my condolences and sending you and your family lots of love. So sorry. It's painful. Down with the book. Okay, now it says, love it. Down with the book. My wife and I can relate. Got my friends on it. Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, so last week we did not have our session because this girl was having sushi and bubbles. So thank you so much for your understanding. But we're back this week and we've been reading chapter 6 for the past 3 or so weeks. And so today we're going to be I'm going to be reading the last part of it, and then next week we'll head into chapter 7. So this part of chapter 6 is I'm going to be picking up from the conversation that I was having with my boss, the meeting that we were having, going through going through that document that she had prepared, which detailed what I was not delivering on, and I was literally challenging every single thing line by line and backing it up with my own evidence and challenging, the accusations that were being leveled against me. So I'm going to pick it up from that conversation. If you're reading along with me, I'm going to take it from page 91. Second paragraph. I don't know if I'm coming down or something, but my sinuses have been acting up. Oh, the change of season. So weird. Hey, Durban son. I won't say your real name. One of the unforgettable moments was when she asked me to send her an email at the end of each day. A daily report of sorts, listing what I had done that day. She claimed that this was to gauge my workload and establish whether there were grounds for me. Excuse me. I don't know what just happened there. She claimed that this was to gauge my workload and establish whether there were grounds for me to get a support resource. I sent her the emails for a few days and detailed everything that I had done that day. Everything. She eventually responded and said that she knows I do a lot. She doesn't want to see all of that. She just wants to see what media queries I dealt with. I was so confused because how could one get an understanding of my workload when you only want to see activities that make up less than 5% of my daily responsibilities? She stuck to her guns, saying she didn't want to micromanage me. Come again? This from the same person who wants to approve my report before I send it out and who was spying on me. Right. She demanded electronic access to my diary. She wanted to be CC'd on all my emails, but she didn't want to micromanage me. I said to her, it's very difficult to check whether or not an additional resource is needed or to consider any type of remedy for the situation when you're not looking at the full picture. You want me to send you my media queries. I don't even know that you're getting the releases that I look at on the side. I'm not aware of what else is sent to you because you're not transparent in the way that you are getting information on what I'm doing. So I don't even know that you've got a view of all the press releases that I have a look at because we've never had that conversation. You never mentioned it to me. And she replied and said, it's not important. And yet this feedback has me being threatened with formal performance management. And then I said to her, and the other thing is that you keep saying to me that I need to muscle in and I need to do all of these things and I need to push and all of that. And that's all great. But how do I when I still have situations where Elliot goes over my head and goes directly to the agency? And you go directly to the agency and Elizabeth has to forward me stuff as an FYI because I haven't been included in the email. As a person who is supposed to be helping me drive PR, Why are you also not including me in emails that you send to agency? She said, to be very honest, I don't think of you when I think PR. That, I think, is a problem with this whole team. And so I said, but it even goes outside of that, Amanda. Not just about PR. I report into you. And she said, yeah, so I include you in all my direct report things. I think about you in that sense, but when I've got to quickly get something off or I've got to ask something, my immediate reaction is Elizabeth. I don't think Sihle. And I said, but that's a choice that you've made. And she said, it's not a choice because I've never actually seen you step to the fore, even in my PR world. Even if I take myself out of retail and I look at just business and commercial banking, I've never seen you step up and take control of business banking and commercial banking PR. I reminded her about one specific example where a media query had come for one of our business units, and I emailed one of the marketing managers, CCing Amanda, with the response I had drafted. The marketing manager forwarded the email to the business unit heads, and business responded saying that they were absolutely happy and they agreed with my approach. She replied, it can't be just once. I reminded her about a second occasion, intentionally only mentioning business units that fell under her portfolio, business units that she claimed but didn't put effort into. On this occasion, I had sent a recommendation for handling a sticky media issue, and she had forwarded my recommendation to business. And then she said, that's a fantastic example. And I said, let me finish. You forwarded the email to Paul, but you deleted my trail from the email to show that it came from me. And she said, I didn't want him to scroll down to read 5 people's emails. And I said, it wasn't 5 people's emails. It was just mine with my recommendation. And she said, well, whatever. It was cleaner. And I said, and also, you didn't even credit the recommendation to me, which was an opportunity for you to position me with Paul, to show that I'm actually involved and I actually do know media relations, as an actual line manager should do. And she said, well, I apologize for that, but I don't think he knew who you were. See how it's changing. And then I said, he came back after his conversation with the journalist and sent an email to all of us, myself, to you, to Elliot, and some people from business. And he said, this is the response I've drafted. Can you guys give me your input? And I'm the only one who gave input on his response. So he doesn't know who I am, but he knows to include me in his responses. How does it work? And she said, you are quite right. I should not have done that. You are 100% right. I absolutely agree with you. The only issue that I have is that those are tiny pockets of examples. I can give you hundreds from the team where you haven't added value. Ah, yes. When all else fails, bring out the hyperbole, as you were. She spoke again of the perception of me being disinterested, going as far as saying that she didn't know if my ability to shine in my role was based on my interest, on the time of day, or the time of month. I was seething, but I struggled internally between expressing my anger and being restrained by the handcuffs that keep women of color all over the world imprisoned, being called an angry black woman. The 3 words that exist to control us and keep us from responding to corporate BS, men's BS, white people's BS in any way we deem fit, stripping away our agency. And then I said to her, so when you get all this negative feedback, at any point do you probe for anything positive? And she said, any positive? So I must reply and say, thanks for the negative feedback. What has she done that's great? She looked at me in unmasked disbelief. How could I ever fix my lips to utter such a question? So I said, I'm just asking a question. I stared back at her with a straight face. And she said, no, because with my other team members, I get positive feedback without having to prompt for it. People are more willing to give positive feedback than they are negative feedback. As our interactions grew in intensity, Amanda's ability to filter her responses to me dwindled. On top of being told that I'm super sensitive and valueless, she would tell me I'm speaking nonsense, that I'm interpreting things in a way that I want to interpret them, that we have a communication problem, and that I'm just a postbox. So I said to her, on a number of occasions you've referred to me as a postbox, saying I mustn't just be a postbox. And she said, which is actually not my words. They were actually from the team. And so I said, it doesn't matter where it comes from. A postbox is an inanimate object that has no value. It does nothing. People put stuff in and pull stuff out. So for you to liken me to that is so incredibly demeaning to me in every way possible. And she laughed. It is so diminishing and disrespectful. I mean, at the very least, can't you call a sister a post office? A building certainly carries more stature than a little metal box. I kid. This woman stayed trying me. So she responded and said, okay, I'm terribly sorry. That's how you see it. But can I explain to you? And I said, no. And she said, it's actually a term. And I said, let me finish. It doesn't matter. Why would anybody want to be likened to an inanimate object? And she said, so we at one stage were classified as a postbox. Notice how, again, she completely disregarded what I said and continued to disrespect me by trying to justify why she could use this term with me. And so I said, that doesn't matter. And she said, business told us in a very honest, transparent feedback. We very maturely took it and made changes to rectify. Please note the language. Honest feedback. We took it maturely. Okay? And then she went on to say the business gave us feedback a few years ago that they saw marketing as a postbox. And we said, really? Please explain to us how you see this. And they gave us examples. We understood and listened, and then we went away and said, right, we need to shift. We need to shift so that we are not perceived as a postbox. And then she went on this whole long thing explaining, trying to justify why I must be okay with her calling me a postbox, right? I'm not going to read through all of that. Essentially, she was saying to me, I don't care if you don't like it. I don't care if you find it disrespectful. I don't care if it's a lie. I will still call you whatever I want and you will just deal with it. And so I said, I don't appreciate it, full stop. I do add value, so I don't agree with it, and I don't want to ever hear it again. And she said, as soon as you prove that, you will never know the number of expletives that went through my mind when this woman said that. Working so hard to ensure that she can continue to oppress me with language that not only erases my contribution, but that also erases my entire being. She wanted to see me shrink. She wanted to make sure I did not walk around with my head held high. She knew that she was putting me through the ringer, but she had no idea how I still kept it together every day, never looking like the hell she was putting me through. And she said, the reality is that I do respect you. The reality is that I'm the one who's putting my hand up in management meetings saying, Sihle can do this. Give Sihle a chance to do this. So as much as you think that I'm this horrible person who swears at you and screams at you and is an absolute witch to you, the truth of the matter is that I honestly do believe in you and I honestly do respect you and I can see you making this role work. Laugh with me. In the weeks that followed, I saw very little of Amanda. There was no longer any mention of me being put onto performance program. I waited anxiously for feedback from the annual performance management process. I had given Amanda a list of stakeholders to get feedback on me from. Ensuring that it was a 360-degree view, I sent her 9 names. A junior peer on the same level as I was, agency, and senior internal executives. I wanted to see what the feedback would be, and I was ready to deal with whatever Amanda tried to throw my way to discredit me, as I knew she would. Well, I thought I was ready. I was not. Amanda requested feedback on me from 35 people. 35. I was furious. The process of acquiring feedback on my performance should have been discussed. Her decision to extend my list should have been addressed directly with me. She did not. In an email she sent me on October 21st of 2014, Amanda wrote, I used your requested list of stakeholders and have added a few more to this list. A few more. I sent her 9. She requested 35. Maybe I don't understand what a few is. I replied, thanks. Please advise who you've added to the list. She added 3 execs, the whole marketing team, because they are key for you to integrate with and support, because I'm the only one who must make the integration happen, which was an additional 14 people. Then there was everyone at a PR agency, and of course Elliot Zimmerman and Lance Strand. She ended off the email with, we typically don't get a response from everyone. I had my performance review meeting with Amanda on the 9th of December 2014. And that is the end of chapter 6. Yep, 35 people. 35. 30. Oh, guys. That's crazy. Let me just catch up on your comments real quick. Why was she trying so hard to break you down? Because I challenged her. She was so used to getting away with abusing people. And it was interesting for me because before I joined her team, before I started reporting into her, I'd kind of, people had been like, okay, just know that she's intense, and she is quite confrontational. And I thought, why would somebody just be crazy confrontational for no reason? I shouldn't have any issues with her because I know my work ethic, I do my job, so we shouldn't have any problems. Why would she have any problems? Boy, oh boy, was I wrong. But once I started going through this, people who knew her or knew people that she knew would say that even at her previous job before she joined the bank, it was the same type of thing. She was known to be very, very abusive, very violent with people in the workplace, but she always got away with it. And she was just known to be a bully. Like, it was just her brand and it was accepted, and I was the one person who very openly and publicly was not willing to tolerate that. I was not willing to allow her to get away with it. And so for the first time, she was being challenged by somebody, and in a way where I didn't challenge her in the way that she does it. So I challenged her in my way, which also aggravated her, because then she couldn't say I was rude to her or I was disrespectful or whatever the case was. I always did it by the book. I always made sure that I respond to her in a way that is professional, so that she doesn't have any ammunition to say that, I'm doing something that goes against any kind of code of conduct or whatever the case may be, because I understood that I can't give her any ammunition. Yes, I must fight, but I need to be very strategic about how I fight with her, how I push back, what she hated, and also the fact that I'm a stickler for detail, and so I was able to always pull out receipts for everything, which she also could not stand. So yeah, I guess it was also panic on her side, because she was going to be exposed for the first time, and the way that I was pushing, the way that I was prepared to fight, in a normal organization with good ethics, she would have lost her job, because of the way in which she conducted herself. But that bank is not interested in any of that. Yes, Oli, she actually said, I don't think of PR when I think of you. Yeah. My own line manager. You need to own this. I don't know how many times I heard that phrase. I was actually so sick and tired of hearing that. Waitresses, Karens after excluding you and providing you with limited information to do your job. Yep, absolutely. That's how they roll. They can go from 0 to 110 seconds. Sounds about right. Blossom says your experience with Karen was going to be totally different if you're white. Absolutely, we would have not had any issues at all. I would have just been seen as somebody who is a go-getter, and who is assertive. But because I'm a black woman, we all know that the language changes when it comes to us, because we're supposed to just take whatever we're given. We must just endure everything. We don't need to be supported or to be helped. Support and help is reserved for white women because they're fragile, they're delicate. They're the ones that are under attack. Oh, poor them. But we're strong. That's why I really can't stand this narrative about black women's worth being tied to our strength, because we're only strong because we have no other choice but to be strong because of what the workplace and society put us through. Glenda says she was setting you up for failure and wanted to watch your downfall. Absolutely. She really felt that she would be able to successfully set all of these various traps for me, that she'd be able to build a case based on nothing, and I wouldn't be able to defend myself because nobody had done that to her before. Nobody had stood up to her in that way. And she got the right person. She got the right one this time around. I mean, I even remember at a certain point, I was reporting into somebody else, and they had done a restructure in the department, and she had, new people reporting into her, and there was an event that they had, and this one colleague of mine was reporting into her, and something happened at this event, and she went off at her in front of everyone and was just like, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen, in front of stakeholders. I was just like, this woman is never going to change. I fought with her for over a year. I have gone through grievances with her and all of these things, and here she is doing exactly the same thing to another person of color in the workplace, another woman. That's just how she rolls. And they know that this is who she is and this is how she works and how she operates, and yet they still make people report into her. They still subject us to her abuse. And for me, it is such an irresponsible thing to do as an employer and as an organization, to continue to subject people to that kind of treatment where they are abused, where they are not supported, where they are invalidated, where they are humiliated by somebody who's supposed to be supporting their development and their growth and their ability to fulfill their functions. Waitress says, interesting how people's boundaries in corporate are called sensitive. Yeah. Like, why aren't you allowing us to abuse you? What's your problem? Why aren't you like the other blacks? Why are you this black? Why are you so troublesome? And why are you so sensitive? Why are you so... We're just trying to encourage you. We're just trying to motivate you. By cussing me out, though? Really? You call me a postbox. I tell you, don't call me a postbox. You say, I'm going to call you a postbox. And then you say, I respect you. How, Sway? I'm supposed to believe that when I'm not with you, you're fighting on my behalf. You're trying to speak up for me. You're advocating for me in other spaces. You disrespect me to my face, but you advocate for me somewhere else. This makes sense to you. Yeah. MSL says a lot of leaders get away with bullying staff. Absolutely. Likan says, but I've only experienced this with women bosses. Durban Sun says, did her name start with K as in Karen or Ku Klux Klan? Yep, definitely a different scenario. If you were white, a go-getter, overachiever, remarkable, absolutely. Yeah. Well, her real name starts with an E. So, yeah, it's crazy. I often wonder what would actually happen if she and I were ever to bump into each other somewhere. Because I've never seen her since I left the organization, and I always just think, that would be interesting. Like if I was just bump into her somewhere, I wonder what would happen. Because I will admit that I've had many, many, many fantasies about bumping into her somewhere, and there's no security around. Because honestly, that woman put me through so much. Bakang says, respect is earned. Why are we not talking about the impact humility can make? Yeah, there is this thing within the workplace, and I think it's not even just the workplace, it exists within society as well, if you look at it from a cultural perspective as well, where respect is demanded purely on the basis of age or of seniority, and it continues to perpetuate the cycle of people having to live with and accept abuse and mistreatment purely because they're younger or they're more junior, right? And we take that from a cultural and societal context and we apply it into the workplace, and that's why it's so important for us to even have conversations about respectability politics in the workplace, and particularly for Black professionals, because Black professionals are different in that we take culture, well, we have culture, but we take culture very seriously, right? And so the way that we're raised to respect our elders and to not call our elders by name, a lot of people apply that to the workplace. And for some people, culture even says that, you don't call somebody who's older than you by their name. You have to call them ma or whatever the case may be. And I've always had a different view on that. I don't call anyone in the workplace ma or whatever the case may be. I call people by their name because we're colleagues. You're not more important than me. I'm not more important than you. And it also then levels out that power dynamic a bit, because all of these different cues have an impact in terms of how we relate to each other, and in terms of the boundaries that you're able to set between yourself and your colleagues and your line managers. I actually had a conversation yesterday. I had a request to briefly join a book club that was discussing my book yesterday virtually, and the issue of addressing people in the workplace as Mr. or Sir, if they're more senior than you, if they're your boss or whatever the case may be. And it really does, all of those various nuances impact on the power dynamic within the workplace, the impact on the way in which you're able to engage, relate, but also it impacts on our understanding of where we can challenge, where we can push back, where we can speak up for ourselves and be empowered, where we feel empowered within the workplace. For those of you who don't know, I have a platform called Connected, which is a membership-based platform for professional Black women, and it's a year-long program. And so as part of Connected, one of the things that we try to do is change the narrative and the beliefs that we currently have about the role that we play within organizations, and the space that we take up within organizations. And one of the things that I have asked the ladies to try and work through and to process is, I guess, evolving the relation, the way in which you understand your role within an organization, right? Because when we think of ourselves as employees, automatically there's a disempowerment that happens, right? When you see yourself as an employee, you kind of feel disabled in so many different ways. You kind of feel you can't speak up. You feel powerless in so many different instances because of our understanding of the employer-employee relationship. But if you change that, and it's little things, if you change that from thinking of yourself as just an employee and you think of yourself as a consultant, because that's what you are. You are there to provide a service. You are consulting into that organization and they are paying you for that service, for that expertise, for that knowledge that only you have. And if you change that narrative and you approach it as a consultant as opposed to just an employee, it really changes the way that you feel about yourself. It changes the way that you feel about your role and your contribution to that organization, and it definitely gives you a deeper sense of empowerment in that role. It gives you a deeper confidence, because what you're doing is no different to what we do as consultants. It's literally the same thing. It's just that we come from the outside and we leave every day or when a project is done or whatever the case may be, but you're literally doing the same thing. It's just that the terms of your contract are different, but you're a consultant. And if you think about it that way, it empowers you in little ways that really help you begin to change that power dynamic, even in our own minds, when we consider the relationship that we have with our employers. Gela is asking if I got any form of support from the organization. Short answer, no. Long answer, hell no. I really didn't. I mean, we're gonna go through that detail further along in the book, but there's various things that I did. I went through complaining to HR. That didn't work. I escalated to the CEO for the South Africa business. Nothing happened. I escalated to the CEO of the group. And I CC'd the CEO for South Africa, and I told the CEO for group that I went to her first and she ignored me, so I'm coming to you. And I CC'd her because you must know I'm talking about you. I'm not gossiping about you. I want you to know exactly what I'm saying so that I'm not misquoted. And only after I wrote to him did she now respond the next day. But even then, nothing happened. Eventually, my frustrations led to me going through lodging a grievance, and still nothing, no joy, nothing. Like literally, box ticking exercise is all it was, and nothing happened, nothing changed. You just get treated like a leper for even going through those processes, for daring to try and hold anybody accountable, and you literally become seen as a nuisance. You're the headache, and also you become the person that other Black professionals don't want to be associated with, because their line managers started getting involved, and people would be told things like, if she asked you to do anything, let me know before you do it. And so people automatically go into self-preservation mode, and nobody wants to speak to you. Nobody wants to engage with you because they don't want to have to tell their boss, oh, I had a conversation with Sihla, because they don't want to be associated with me. They don't want to be, victimized because of the association with me. And that's how abuse continues to thrive in the workplace. MSL says standing your ground is labeled as career limiting move. Yeah, it is very much so. And even after leaving corporate, now writing my book, taking the ANC to court for not paying me for my services, all of those things. And for so many people, the first thing they ask me is, aren't you worried that you're going to be unemployable? Because you're just causing a ruckus everywhere. No. I am not the problem. All I'm doing is fighting for what is fair and what is due to me. All I'm doing is fighting for justice. How is it that you've deduced that it is I that is the problem in this situation? And that's a mentality that so many people have. Because in everything that we have experienced, everything that we live through, we are consistently told we must endure. Right? Abuse, bullying, hardship is our portion as Black people. That is what we're told. And I'm sorry, I'm rejecting all of that. I cannot be involved. I refuse. Hardship is not my portion. Oli says, because half the time there should be someone who feels more powerful to limit your career. Yeah, absolutely. Demonsan says, important that your sense of self-worth isn't defined by your job. Absolutely. This is so, so important. But for so many of us, we grow up with this idea of self-actualization and success being firmly rooted in successful careers, in financial prosperity, and we don't have a culture of rooting our sense of self in ourself without anything from the outside. And I think that, understanding that is a great opportunity for us to not only work on ourselves, but also for those of us who choose to have children, to, as they are growing, help them grow up with a different narrative and a different understanding of what success is, being able to embrace a success that is not defined by money or by positions or whatever the case may be, because it has caused so much damage. So many people endure horrendous experiences in the workplace purely because they can't imagine having to start over. And that's something that I had to grapple with as well, because quitting my job with no plan meant that I'm not able to have the kind of social life that I had become accustomed to. It meant that I had to deal with the fact that I was going to have to lose my A3 convertible. It meant that it meant so many different things. It meant that sometimes I won't even have money to buy data or airtime, and this was scary for me to know that I'm not going to have a salary every month and be able to do things, to know that I'm not, do you know what I mean? To know that I'm not going to be able to go out for lunch. I'm not going to be able to it's scary, because then it's just like I think I had to get over the feeling of it's going to be so humiliating. I had to literally, life forced me to develop a sense of self and self-worth that existed without anything. And I literally mean without, because I literally had nothing to my name. And I had to rebuild myself on that basis with nothing and redefine who I was for me. And that was hard. Amber says, I think that's why we're afraid to speak up, because of being victimized. Absolutely. There is that. And it's even harder to even consider speaking up, because we don't stand up for each other. It's a lot easier for people to speak up if they know that they'll be supported. They know that somebody will stand with them, somebody will validate them, amplify their voice. So it's very, very difficult. And that's why I will always reiterate, the name of my book was very intentional. And if there's anything that you take out of it, if there's anything that, should stand out for you from that book, is the title of the book. We are the ones we need. That's literally the takeaway. Oh, girl, that ANC drama. Hey, I have lived, and I am living right through it all. And the thing is, with both of those experiences, I was petrified, because I knew that I was going up against major institutions, powerful institutions that had support and resources that were far beyond anything that I could ever, pull out myself. And it was very difficult. It was very, very difficult. And I think, it was also an eye-opener for me, because with both of those, I was able to see people for who they were, but I was also able to see how easy it is for people to ignore injustices purely because they don't affect them personally, and how easy it is to re-victimize people who are already victims of injustice, purely because it's entertainment. It was very difficult to be going through that, and then go on social media and people are talking all kinds of shit that was inaccurate, where my integrity is being questioned, but not the organization that has not paid me, where, the person who is trying to get justice is the one that's being vilified publicly. Yeah. So, no thanks. I'm not trying to be in the Black Women Are Strong Olympics anymore. Thank you. I think I have earned myself a soft life. But that shouldn't even be something that we need to earn. It should be something that we just have because we are deserving. Just because we exist. Blossom says, as black women, we're socialized to, Nyamazela, we don't need to tolerate abuse. Absolutely. Ooh, Begazela. And no, I'm not begazelling anything. Devan says, salute you, absolutely. You're head and shoulders above the rest of us. We're in this together. It's just that, we all have a role to play. And it's about understanding where your strengths are and how you can best use your strength and your resources, right? And so I understood that I am able to build and establish a platform that is public. And so that is what I have chosen to use as one of my tools to drive this agenda. But there are people who are contributing from behind the scenes that nobody will ever hear about. And so I think, there's so many different ways to be courageous in this journey, and we can all contribute. We all have a role to play. It doesn't have to be anything major. It doesn't have to be a duplication of what I'm doing. There's a role for all of us to play. Bakang says, still you stood your ground. We are victims for speaking our own truth and dissatisfaction within the working space. Those with upper hands are defined by their oppressive characters. Empathetic leadership. Absolutely. Yes, soft life. That's seriously. I'm very enough of the struggles. Thank you very much. So I'm not about any of that. I actually I had an interview with a radio station in Chicago this week, and one of the questions they asked was, around how have things changed in South Africa since 1994. And what do you even say? What do you even say? This week, PwC came out with a report that revealed that companies listed on the JSE, I think less than 6% are women, right? And what percentage of that is Black women? So I want to actually look at that report properly in this coming week, because I want to, really unpack those statistics, outcomes of that research, because I think a lot of the time when we have these conversations about inequality in the workplace, we don't spend enough time drilling down in enough detail. For instance, for me, I find it highly problematic and inaccurate when a statistic is presented as this percentage of women is in this, or this percentage of women are leading organizations. No, I want you to break it down by race. Don't tell me women as a group, because we also understand the dynamic that exists when you look at the intersections of womanhood, right? Because we all know that white women have a very different experience to Black women. We all know that able-bodied women, even if they're Black, have a very different experience to Black women who are living with disabilities. Do you know what I mean? We need to start having intersectional conversations and not just top level conversations, because we never actually are going to deal with the real issues. And if we think, okay, let's park everything else for now. Let's just deal with the issue of black women. When are we going to get to everybody else? We're never going to be able to deal with oppression. We're never going to be able to deal with inequality if we keep wanting to look at things within silos. That's why nothing ever gets done. You know, when are we going to, by the time we get through all of that, when do we get to trans women? When do you know what I mean? There's so many issues, there's so many intersectionalities that exist, and we have to start forcing intersectionality into the conversations that we have about equality in the workplace. Devinson says apartheid has evolved, that's all. We're still oppressed, but a different kind of oppression, you're right. Manzi, Monari. Really love that. Oli says apartheid found a corner office. It's like a whole floor. Like the hey, an entire floor with a view. Bondsmith says 100% the intersectional nuance is essential to the conversation. Absolutely. Otherwise, we honestly are just wasting everybody's time, you know, because those nuances also need to be reflected in HR. Hi, Ole. Because when I think about it in the context of, you know, coming from the financial services sector, there's such a high focus on what university did these applicants go to, and especially when we're looking at recruits, when we're looking at graduates, there's such a high focus on the university, and therefore if somebody went to WITS or if somebody went to UCT, they are better. They're a better candidate than everybody else. They're more qualified than everybody else. They're more, do you know what I mean? And so what that does is that it creates, it actually widens the inequality gap, because we are ignoring the fact that so many young black people do not have access to WITS, to UCT, because of structural inequality, because of financial inequality and economic exclusion, because we know that historically black families have not had an opportunity to build wealth, to acquire wealth, to be able to even save money for children's education. And so we look down on colleges, on, you know, your Bostons and City College and your Rosebank College. We automatically assume that people who go there are less than everybody else. They're not as good as, they're not as smart as, and those are assumptions that are made by privileged people. And yet there are so many brilliant young people who can add so much value to organizations, to workplaces, to, you know, the work that we produce, if they were just given a chance. But we are continuing to perpetuate inequality by doing that. We're continuing to ensure that the people who are already struggling economically, financially, remain the people who are struggling economically in every sense of the word. And so we need to start changing our attitudes around that. If we want to be responsible citizens, if we want to be active citizens, and if we want to truly contribute towards the evolution of South Africa, and also to, you know, really contribute towards the reduction in youth unemployment, we have to recognize this country's history at every single touch point when we're looking at opportunities for especially black people. What he says, so sad because it's no longer about the candidates but which varsity they come from. Absolutely. And we see it all the time. It's classist. And every time I see people bragging about, well, I went to WITS, so therefore, I'm always just like, okay, and like, do you realize that that's literally something that you had access to because of privilege? Even if you were there through a student loan, the fact that you were able to get a student loan and have somebody to guarantee it for you, somebody to provide surety for it, that is a privilege. Many people can't even dream of that, you know? And we need to change our mindsets. This is not helping us first. It says, and in those better universities, only a certain number of blacks can graduate. Institutional racism, not yet uhuru, guys. Absolutely. And that's the reality of it. And for people who are able to go to the universities, I mean, how many times, guys, do we see people on Twitter asking for assistance to pay for their fees so that they can get their results and be able to graduate so that they can actually get jobs? And so the cycle just does not stop. And people understand that if I go to Wits, I have an opportunity to but why? It shouldn't be like that. Because it serves people who have historically been privileged, and that's white people. It's predominantly white people, and we need to be very, very honest about that. And also, this culture of people having to start off their careers with this debt from student loans is horrendous. I was even reading an article about a post from somebody. Was it a TikTok video that somebody posted? I saw it on Twitter. She posted about how she had a student loan debt. She has been paying for a certain number of years, but she still owes the full amount that she was loaned. She still owes that amount. So all she's been paying is interest. That's literally all that's gone down. And so when she calculates how much she's actually going to have paid by the time she's done with it, you're literally looking at 3-4 times what you actually were loaned. And that's insane. All because you have to go to Ivy League. No, guys. No. The system needs to be broken down completely because this is fucked up. That was an eye-opener. We often assume that those from a less well-known institution are not worthy. You'll get a white one with privileges and they will straight up tell you what they did not sign up for. Atlanta says, you're paying off NAFSA is such a drag. I'm SMS'd every day. They urge me to pay. Hi Sihle. Mui says, hi Sihle. How do we work with privilege then? You talk about Wits graduates talking from privilege when they brag about graduating from there. So the biggest thing for me around that is, okay, Instagram's gonna kick me out at any point, so in case it does, bye guys, thank you, I'll see you next week. Let me try and answer this question. For me, the issue is using the fact that you studied at Wits as a way to drag people who did not have an opportunity to study there, who did not have the means to study there. You can go to Wits because you have the means, but that does not make you better than anybody else, especially not black people, when you understand the history of our country, when you understand the socio-economic issues that still exist in this country, and we need to be mindful of that in those conversations. And so even when we are in the context of recruiting within organizations, we shouldn't be looking down on people purely because they went to a college that is not in the top 20 in Africa. Do you know what I mean? We need to change that mindset. Monty says, a former employer of mine refused to even interview applicants from historically black universities. And that's exclusion. That's intentional exclusion. It's literally saying we do not want black people. We don't want a mass of black people applying in here because we want to control the number of black people that can come. And then organizations are able to say, well, we had to choose a white person because we didn't have enough black people. We can't find any black people who are suitable for this role. Because also the requirements when recruiting are so ridiculous that they exclude a very specific group of people consistently. It's not an accident that it happens that way. So guys, thank you so much. I think I've covered everybody's questions. I will see you again next week, Sunday, 6 p.m. for Chapter 7. Have a fantastic week. Thank you for joining me.